Sign it before dessert. Or I promise you my son will have this marriage annulled by Monday morning. My mother-in-law's voice was quiet. That was the thing about Margaret Holloway, she never raised her voice. She didn't need to. She had spent 40 years perfecting a calm that made you feel the ground shifting beneath your feet. A calm that reminded you exactly how replaceable you were. I looked down at the document placed neatly beside the cranberry sauce. A postnuptial agreement. 14 pages. Prepared by one of the most expensive family attorneys in Connecticut. Designed to strip me of everything if my marriage ever ended. It was printed on thick cream paper. The kind that feels expensive before you even read a word. A pen rested beside it like part of the table setting. As if signing away my rights was just another course in the meal. Across from me my husband Daniel stared into his wine glass. He studied it like it held the answer to everything. Or maybe like it was the safest place to hide. He hadn't looked at me once. Not since we drove through the iron gates of his parents' estate 2 hours ago. At the head of the table his father, Howard, carved the turkey with slow, deliberate precision. The movements of a man who already believed he had won. Victoria, Daniel's sister, sat to the side, inspecting her manicure with practiced indifference. Her husband, Preston, quietly refilled his glass, watching me the way people watch a car crash, knowing it's coming, unable to look away. This was Thanksgiving with the Holloways. This was the family I married into 3 years ago, when I was 28 and naive enough to believe that love could protect me from everything. Margaret folded her hands neatly on the tablecloth and looked at me. The same expression she used for disappointments, late contractors, underwhelming caterers, and me. Claire, she said like my name was a minor inconvenience. You're a smart girl. I've always said that. I said nothing. You're smart enough to understand what this family represents, she continued. The Holloway name opens doors most people spend their entire lives standing outside of. Pause. What we're asking isn't unreasonable. It's simply a formality. A formality? I repeated quietly. Daniel's grandfather built this family from nothing, Howard added, setting down his knife. We protect what was built. That isn't personal. It feels personal, I said. Victoria finally looked up. She smiled at me. That same smile she'd worn since the day Daniel introduced us. The kind you give a child's drawing. Polite. Amused. Slightly condescending. No one is attacking you, Claire, she said smoothly. We just think, given your background, it's reasonable to have protections in place. Your background. Those 2 words had followed me through this house for 3 years. Your background, meaning the small apartment in Akron where I grew up. Your background, meaning my mother worked double shifts at a grocery store. Your background, meaning my father left when I was 4. Your background, meaning I hadn't been born into a name that opened doors. So clearly, I must have married one to get through them. You came into this family with nothing, Victoria continued lightly. We'd just like clarity on what you'll leave with, if things don't work out. Nothing. That word lingered in the air. They had never really asked what I did. Not with real curiosity. Daniel had told them once that I ran a small software company. And Margaret had nodded the way people nod when you tell them you've picked up a hobby. Polite. Dismissive. Like it didn't matter. And sitting there with a pen placed in front of me like a command, I realized something. They weren't asking me to sign a document. They were asking me to prove that I was exactly who they thought I was. The topic was never brought up again. To the Holloways I was simple. A pretty girl from nowhere, who had charmed their son into marriage. A risk. A statistic. The kind of woman who would walk away with half a trust fund if things fell apart. They weren't entirely wrong about one thing. Strategy. They just misunderstood which one of us was playing the game. I'm not signing it, I said. The table went still. Daniel finally looked at me. His expression was complicated. Guilt, hesitation, and something else. Recognition. The look of a man realizing his past decisions were catching up to him all at once. Claire, he started. I'm not signing it, I repeated calmly. The same calm Margaret used. I had learned from the best. Howard leaned back in his chair. Then you should understand what that means, he said. I have a call scheduled with our attorney at 9 tomorrow morning. We'll begin annulment proceedings, on the grounds of fraudulent misrepresentation. I tilted my head slightly. Fraudulent misrepresentation? That's an interesting choice of words. You presented yourself, Howard continued, as a woman of modest means who loved our son. If there were omissions or misrepresentations about your situation or intentions, the marriage can be undone. Preston cleared his throat. Of course he did. He was the enforcer. The one who delivered threats dressed as logic. Claire, he said smoothly, we've done our due diligence. Pause. We know your company's last reported revenue. Another pause. $48,000. He leaned back slightly. We're not trying to humiliate you. We're protecting the family. I looked at him for a long moment. Preston with his Yale law degree, worn like a badge. A man so confident in what he knew, and so unaware of what he didn't. 48,000, I repeated softly. That's what the filing shows, he said, satisfied. I nodded once. Then I said, take out your phones. No one moved. Please, I added. Quiet. Precise. Controlled. Even Victoria instinctively reached for hers, before catching herself. Claire, we're not going to, Margaret began. Velar Systems, I said. Foley. Curry. VLAR. I folded my hands. I'll wait. Something shifted. Daniel picked up his phone first. He typed. Read. And then. I watched the color drain from his face. What is? He started, then stopped. Howard frowned, then reached for his own phone. Victoria typed, and went still. Preston didn't move. But his jaw tightened. Velar Systems wasn't a public-facing name. It wasn't on business cards. It wasn't something you stumbled across casually. It was the parent company. The one above everything else. The one that didn't need attention to exist. 14 months ago, its last public valuation. $2.1 billion. The Holloway family's total net worth? Around $400 million. I knew that. Because 2 years ago, one of my subsidiaries extended them a commercial credit line. They knew the bank. They just didn't know who owned it. This isn't, Howard started. Possible. I offered. You've been running this company since before you married Daniel? Margaret asked. Her voice hadn't changed. Not even now. I respected that. I founded it at 24, I said simply. The 48,000 you found? That belongs to a shell entity. A small pause. It has nothing to do with the actual company. I picked up the postnuptial agreement, holding it lightly. I understand why you had this drafted, I said. You thought you were protecting your family. You thought I had something to gain, and nothing to offer. You thought the math was simple. How? Daniel asked quietly. Not really a question. More like the sound of his reality shifting. I didn't lie to you, I said. And I meant it. I told you I had a company. I told you it was growing. A small smile touched my lips. I told you, on our third date, sitting on the floor of my apartment eating takeout because I hadn't even bought a couch yet, that I was going to build something that lasted. He had laughed back then. Not cruelly. Just lightly. Like it was a dream. Ambitious, he had called it. And sitting there now, I realized something. It wasn't that they had underestimated me. It was that they had never really looked at me at all. That was the thing about the Holloways, they saw labels, not people. And once they decided what you were, they never bothered to look closer. So this is what? Victoria said sharply. You've been hiding all this to make us look stupid? To prove a point. I haven't been hiding anything, I replied evenly. You just never asked. Silence settled over the table, thick and heavy. For a moment my mind drifted, back 3 years to another dinner just like this one. 2 weeks after Daniel and I got engaged. Margaret had called it a welcome dinner. I had worn a dress I couldn't really afford, hoping to make a good impression. I didn't understand then that the judgment had already been made before I even walked in. After dinner, while Daniel was with his father, Margaret had taken me into her library. She sat across from me, calm as always, and said, I believe in honesty. Daniel is generous. He loves easily. He trusts easily. Those are beautiful qualities, and dangerous ones. This family protects itself. Whatever your intentions are, we are watching. I had sat in my car for 10 minutes afterward trying to breathe. I thought about my mother who never judged the people I loved. I thought about my small team back then. 7 employees who trusted me. I thought about the girl I used to be, sitting in a lab at 3 a.m., terrified but certain she was building something real. And I made a quiet promise to myself. They won't take this from me. Now back at the table I looked at Margaret again. Her expression had changed, not shock, not anger. Calculation. Well, she said slowly. There's something else, I interrupted. And this time I didn't soften it. I should be honest, I continued. What I did next wasn't clean. It wasn't noble. It was patient. I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila folder, placing it beside the unsigned agreement. 18 months ago, I said, your family took out a $12 million commercial credit line to refinance 3 Holloway properties. The lender was Meridian Capital Partners. I looked directly at Howard. In November, I acquired a controlling interest in Meridian. The room went still. That means, I continued calmly, I now hold your note. I opened the folder and slid a document across the table. The loan is currently in technical default. The balloon payment due in December was missed. Howard shot to his feet. Sit down, I said quietly. Something in my voice made him pause, just long enough that he actually did. You can't. I'm not calling it, I said. I have no interest in your properties. I'm not here to destroy anything. I let that settle. I'm here so everyone understands the real numbers. Then I turned to Preston. Since we're doing due diligence. He froze. The investment account you've been running through Trident Advisory received insider information about Pelios Pharma's FDA timeline. The source was a contact at Strickland Financial. I held his gaze. Strickland is now owned by one of my subsidiaries. Their internal communications are under review. No one moved. I forwarded the files to the SEC 6 days ago. Victoria slowly turned toward her husband. Preston opened his mouth, but nothing came out. I didn't plan any of this tonight, I said, looking around the table. You invited me. You set this up. You put that document in front of me. I closed the folder. I just came prepared. Margaret studied me carefully. For the first time I could see her thinking, really thinking. What do you want? She asked. I didn't look at her. I want my husband to look at me. Daniel lifted his head. His eyes met mine. I'm not doing this to hurt you, I said quietly. I'm doing this because for 3 years I sat at this table and let your family decide what I was worth. I took a breath. I stayed quiet. I thought if I was patient, if I waited long enough, the truth would speak for itself. My voice softened but didn't break. I thought you would see it. I looked at him, steady and unflinching. That document they put in front of me tonight. Did you know about it? He dropped his gaze. Did you know? I asked again. They told me it was just a formality, he said quietly. A formality, I repeated. To protect the family. He nodded. Yes. Claire, I didn't think. No, I cut in gently. You didn't. Before he could respond, a sound came from outside. Tires crunching over gravel, then the heavy, unmistakable thud of car doors. Margaret turned toward the window. Howard pushed his chair back. 2 sets of headlights moved slowly up the private drive. That would be the federal compliance team, I said calmly. They're not here for dinner. The room stilled. I authorized a voluntary disclosure with the SEC 2 weeks ago regarding Trident. They requested my presence for the initial interviews. I looked at Preston. That includes you. This is insane, Victoria snapped, her voice tight. You can't do this in someone's home. He can speak with them here, I said evenly, or he can go to their office on Monday. That was the agreement. I pushed for this option. It's less disruptive. Preston stared at the folder like it might disappear if he didn't blink. I stood. There's something I need to say, I said, my voice clear and controlled. Because it matters more than anything else tonight. I looked at Margaret. I don't hate you. This isn't about revenge. No one spoke. This is about the fact that you handed me 14 pages and a pen, and asked me to sign away my rights because you had already decided who I was. I let that sit. And I let you finish. I let you say everything you planned to say. Because if you were going to do it, you deserved to do it fully, and I deserved to respond fully. You've made your point, Howard said tightly. I've made a beginning, I replied. The point is this, I never hid from you. You just never looked. There's a difference. Silence pressed in on all sides. And next time you sit across from someone and decide who they are, I added, ask one more question. before you print it on expensive paper. I picked up my bag. Then I looked at Daniel. I'll be at the Whitmore Hotel if you want to talk, I said. Really talk. Not Holloway talk. Just us. I paused. I'm still your wife. I'd like the chance to figure out if that still means something, outside of all this. I held his gaze for a second longer. But that's your choice. Then I turned and walked out. Behind me the doorbell rang. I heard chairs move. Howard's voice. Margaret speaking low and controlled. Victoria saying Preston's name, sharp like she already knew the answer. I didn't stop. Outside the November air was cold and clean, the kind that clears your head instead of weighing it down. Gravel crunched under my heels as I passed the first black SUV. A man in a dark coat gave me a brief nod. I nodded back. My car waited at the edge of the circular drive, exactly where I had left it, facing outward. I got in, started the engine and sat there for a moment, hands resting on the wheel. In the rearview mirror the house glowed, every window lit, golden against the dark. Massive. Certain. Untouchable. Or at least it had been. My phone buzzed. A message from Rachel, my CFO. All clear on Meridian documentation. Wall Street Journal wants comment on Trident timeline. I typed back, Monday. And send flowers to the team, they've earned it. For a second I thought about calling my mother. I'd call her tomorrow. She had a way of making even the biggest storms feel manageable, without pretending they weren't real. Then I thought about Daniel. The first time I saw him, in a hotel lobby in San Francisco. Coffee spilled down his shirt and he laughed. Not embarrassed. Not defensive. Just real. That was the man I had married. I still believed he existed. Whether he could find his way back to himself. That wasn't something I could do for him. I shifted the car into drive. As I passed through the iron gates I glanced one last time in the mirror. The house stood there glowing in the dark. And behind me an empty driveway. I didn't feel victorious. I felt finished. The kind of tired that comes after you've carried something heavy for too long, and finally set it down. That night I didn't reclaim a seat at their table. I remembered something better. I had never needed one.